So thanks for joining us today. So we're going to go through a session today to talk about a new and important partnership we've got with the British Society, which is the Chartered Institute for IT in the UK. And this is a joint piece of work developed with colleagues from the National Technology Council, led by Richard, who leads the People Strand, alongside his day job as Director of DDAT at Derbyshire Constabulary. And in a few moments, I'll be joined by Andy, Richard, and Andrew from the British Computer Society, who will explain who they are and what the BCS does, etc., to take us through this. So if you would like any more information about this subject, please go to the Police Digital Service website or speak to your business engagement manager in a force who can get you through to any further details that you need. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Andy Bidmead from the Police Digital Service. And perhaps, Andy, you can start us off by explaining why the Police Digital Service has worked to develop this partnership and what does it actually mean for policing?
Thanks, David, and good afternoon, everybody. The reason that this has been brought about is really in response to the ongoing challenge about how we work as partners with the NTB, which Richard will talk about a bit later, around facing head on the challenges around recruitment, retention, skills gap, and keeping up with the technological changes that are upon all industry, but particularly policing. Particularly we'll be looking ahead around use of AI and those skills that we all need as well. So working together to provide this partnership with the British Computer Society, who is the Chartered Institute for IT in this area, and working together to provide memberships, ability to access professional training, CPD and the like. So it's really that strategic working together with partners to enable, as PDS do, to enable. So what does this mean in practice? Well, essentially through the work that's been done, we provided about 470 membership places for policing across the UK. They can be accessed from the information that will be provided. And again, that provides people who've got those licenses to really enable CPD, access certain training, specialist knowledge, and together with the work that we're doing, so that's one part of sort of a few stakes in the ground as part of the wider work that enables avenues for us to really look at those challenges and work together with the College of Policing and NTB to really support forces as we move forward to meet those challenges I've explained. So I won't say any more because I'll start taking over what Richard and Andrew will say, but hopefully that gives you that background of why we're doing it. It's about enabling, as always, and obviously we want to work in partnership, which is what we're doing. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Andy. And Richard, I'll bring you in here. You've been leading the People Strand of work for the National Technology Board, which obviously reports to NPCC Digital Data and Technology Coordination Committee. God, we love acronyms and long names, don't we? Could you perhaps start us off with explaining what the biggest challenges are that you're working to address? And how does this new partnership agreement support the IT teams across UK policing?
Thank you, David. I think one of the biggest problems we've faced is consistency of the roles that we've got, and we've identified that there's a lot of unique versions of the same role across multiple forces. And they're all separately graded and they're all separately agreed within forces. So the people group constantly gets asked about what are the role profiles for this role, that role, have you got structure charts, etc. So how does a link with BCS help this? That's the start of our journey, really. We really want to bring together these roles and put them into a framework that we can then use for the whole of policing, and get a single set of standards, the professionalism, the recognition of the what BCS offers, to individuals within that. And I think getting to that level of change is, quite a big task. I think we're going to go on to talk a little bit more about police reform and white papers, so I'll save that till then. But actually, as Andy mentioned, new roles like robotic process automation, AI type roles, agentics, all those buzzwords that we get come round. Those we need to look at how we address those together and consistently, and then we can start training consistently using the resources that BCS can provide us around that continual professional development, which I think is really important to professionalise policing as we go forward.
And Richard, I think it's really important, is it, that we recognise that the policing technology roles can learn and perhaps influence lots of other roles from other sectors. That we work in quite a unique environment, but quite often the roles and technologies we use have got crossovers to many of our colleagues in other organisations, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we do want to expand, beyond just the IT part of that to looking into the sort of data areas. And we are linked in with the Scientific Advisor's Office as well in terms of roles like that and how that affects all the roles across policing from a digital perspective, whether that's a constable on the beat, to somebody else in the back office in an HR team or a finance team.
Thanks, you. And Andrew, many colleagues might not be that familiar with the British Computer Society or BCS.
Mhm.
Could you perhaps explain your role and perhaps the role of BCS plays for those who work in the IT profession?
Sure. I mean, in my role, technically a senior technical partner, but largely a facilitator, and echoing what our organization does, which is, I mean, we are effectively a community of 70,000 individuals over 150 countries, and a wider community of business leaders, educators, practitioners, policymakers, all committed to our mission. We are a charity. We do have a Royal Charter, as mentioned earlier, and our agenda is really to lead the IT industry through the various ethical challenges, some of which were touched on today, to support people specifically who work in the industry and make IT good for society. We aim to ensure that everyone's experience with technology is positive, and that's something we've been doing since 1957. So we are a relatively young professional body, which means we can draw from how others have done it, and learn from that as well. So effectively, that's who we are.
So how does the BCS support professional standards, skill development and career pathways in those digital and technology roles?
Well, I mean, looking at, there's several lenses I could answer that question through. Looking firstly through the lens of an individual. We are a membership organisation first and foremost. Some of the things I mentioned now, we do more formally, as I think Richard alluded to, and I'll draw some other examples later on. But as an individual who's partnering or choosing to join us, there's a code of conduct, which it all speaks to, getting people in the right mindset or endorsing the mindset they already have as professionals. We will ensure or share good practices to help people progress in their career. So there are various standards that we support, both those derived from government, things like Sophia as well, and we make sure people are aware of them and know how to use them. As a professional organisation, we have a range of communities, and I'm drawing here from memory with my discussions with many forces and organisations. And one that we keep coming back to is the ability to access a range of communities, both technical and geographical. So again, sharing of practices. There's one particular thing around mentoring communities as well. That is, again, another vehicle for sharing good practices. Keeping skills up to date. AI was mentioned a moment ago. That is very much in our focus. And the ethical implications of that, and the headache it's causing everybody. So there's a range of CPD that exists and will continue to grow within membership, designed to ensure that people are thinking correctly, if you will, around the application of CTP. Recognition, again, is another one, is really important. So recognizing those in the industry that are doing really well, and again, in the spirit of just sort of buoying everybody up. And there are obviously some financial advantages for memberships as well. So there's a range of things, but those are looking at them through the lens of an individual journey. But again, we can do things more formally, but which maybe Richard might touch on later.
And I think that recognition point is really important in policing. It's fair to say that recognition of those who work in technology and enable technology has been underrepresented in the past, and that's why we launched the awards a couple of years ago to recognise that. And next week's webinar is actually going to be spotlighting one of the awards on this. But in terms of this particular partnership, it's certainly significant for the Police Digital Service. What's the significance from the British Crime Society's point of view?
The BCS, well, I'm going to paraphrase comments from my CEO, just in case she ever watches this video, but I wholly agree with them. So the partnership, like many of our partnerships, there's an alignment with thinking, and our ambitions of the professional body are almost directly aligned, and it's around building confidence and have an ethically grounded workforce and helping to develop individuals in that way. And again, I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me, but supporting officers and staff development, recognition again of professional skills, and we believe with this partnership will help us strengthen the public trust in how technology and data is used, applied to our relationship with the police and PDS, but also other communities as well. It goes without saying that again, I'm sharing how it's spoken internally, but we're extremely proud of the partnership and very excited to see where it goes and how it goes, and how we can support as well. We do believe that we have a lot of expertise. I'll work with pretty much all government departments now in this vein, and there's a lot of things and good practices that we could share in this endeavour.
And I'll ask you in a few moments to take us through the detail of what the partnership means, including the 470 memberships. But how do you see the partnership developing over the time? And perhaps what will the next steps be, and what will be tangible for those of us who are looking to exploit this?
A great question. Again, as the strength to all our long-term relationships with, and again, I'm thinking of some of the government departments I've worked with for the last decade or so, is that picture is evolving as we go, and that's one of the things that we're achieving, is that understanding of capability and how it relates to the challenges coming down the line. So it's yet to be determined, but what I will say is that I give you an example of a similar partnership is around the NHS. So much to Richard's point earlier, I think how that's evolved over the years is the establishment of specific specialist communities. Primary health and care specialist group and that was also, I think, our 55th specialist groups, along with AI, big data, etc. So we are able to create formal groups where people can come together. Again, we've developed standardized roles for the NHS. That's, to Richard's point, that's something we can, draw on as well. Personally thinking, I think those things I mentioned around insight and capability and data, I see there is an opportunity to create a really detailed and growing picture, and one that's ratified and that can be used. But I'd also like thinking of the vehicle which I've been asked to focus on, which is membership. I am thinking of the individuals. I'm thinking of recognizing and celebrating their commitment and their successes in their own professions and the organization and force they're working within. So there's a particular thing called Chartered IT Professional. It's actually Chartered Professional next week. We had a meeting with several government leaders, departments yesterday, in fact. So I would like to see the adoption of these standards, because there are a range of them: Chartered AI Professional, etc., etc. So that's something, as a personal ambition, I'd like to be able to say that the force have an average of more chartered people than those, let's say, in the financial services sector who I deal with as well. So it's an evolving picture, but one that I'm very excited to see develop.
So I'll ask you to bring about the tangible bits in a minute, but perhaps picking up on the points you just made, I'd like to bring Richard in again at this point. And Richard, a couple of points for you to think about on this is: how does this partnership align to the recent announcements in the white paper about the future of the National Police Service, the NPS, and how do you think this partnership might support that transition to a more national standardised approach in UK policing?
Yeah, it feels like really what we're trying to do is fully aligned with the sort of white paper reform approach and agenda, and we're hoping that will give us, the support as well to make sure that we can push this through. Making the assumption, and we don't know exactly yet how forces might change over the next few years, but we are assuming there will be a lesser number of forces. So having this sort of framework in place, I think, will give people an easier way of how we move forward in terms of that. And I think it will create a lot of opportunities for people within their forces and regional forces to look at, how they can advance their careers. And having this sort of framework in place will show how easily it is to do that, as opposed to as if we were separate forces. I also want to pick on that point around that Andrew made around the sort of professionalism, the chartered sort of positions and the tech positions and gradings BCS has as well. I think it'd be really good to get those embedded across policing so that we can understand, people can understand how they can progress and how we can support their progression as individuals, through BCS, and to be a more professional organisation. Full stop.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to go back to Andy and Andrew now in terms of, so what does the partnership actually mean in terms of frontline policing and police forces right now? What should they do if they're interested in getting more involved in this?
Yeah, well, I think in the chat it's in there about asking for further information. But yeah, reach out to on the links provided, and then what will happen is that we would then ensure that the right people know the information around who to contact, who and when. But essentially, it's straightforward in the sense of what PDS has done here is we've got into an arrangement where really we will make the introduction, and then the work through straight direct with BCS with Andrew Barnett. We're on hand obviously to support with any documentation and contracts and things like that, but then it's a direct route in, and then it's in ensuring that we will work together to monitor those licenses which forces get, and really support forces to leverage the best from those. So working in partnership across, as we've spoken already. The other thing I think which is key to that is that one of the outworkings of that is that although the licenses are individual licenses, by working together, it means that we can then strategically meet the aims that Richard has talked about, because this is a bit of a bottom-up approach, but also a top-down approach. So it's working together to ensure that some forces have already have had licenses before and are quite mature. So it's then getting the lessons learned from there, so other forces can learn from that. And then also, as perhaps new forces are innovating with these licenses and how they use them, we also bring that to the centre and share it out as well. So it's as Andrew was saying, it's quite exciting, but there is that coordination piece there at the centre, which is hopefully comes across really clearly today. Andrew, is there anything you wish to add to that?
No, I think the next steps are relatively straightforward. It's the right thing to do to engage with each force as they're all different, but at the same time, keeping in mind things that will help link everything together. The use of certain skills frameworks, the adoption of certain standards as well, and we have that underlying sort of information that we can start to look at with permission of the forces as well, as we've touched on. So no, I don't think so. And again, it's an evolving picture, but one that we have some experience in shaping. So just very excited to speak to forces and continue that discussion. The responses thus far and the conversations have been really fantastic. Every force has been great and very open, and it's enabled us to just course correct and shape each membership offer to fit precisely the force we're engaged with. So no, nothing more to add.
And Andy, just picking up on Nigel's question, this is a benefit for the members of PDS, isn't it? So BTP are already covered under this, I believe, or where are we on that? Is it just the territorial 43?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's down to PDS membership. So the member forces have got those. There are other, because this is such a good offering, we've had lots of interest. So I would say if you're interested and you're not a paying PDS member, then do reach out, and Mike and I will we'll arrange a call with you. We've got calls already in there about that, and we can work through. There's definitely opportunities as part of the contractual arrangement to do that. And I think going back to Richard's point, the more that are involved with this, the better is moving forward together, because it does bring that sort of consistency around that, and also supports the other frameworks in place, like the work that the college does, the CVF, which we all work to as police officers. So these all need to be harmonised. So what we can do to include and be as inclusive as possible is surely what we'll be doing. So don't worry.
And it just shows the work that we're able to do as a member organisation ourselves in some ways, member force organising, the forces of the members. This is the power we've been able to do in influence in that. Andrew, just a question about mentoring and networking. What sort of opportunities will there be for the people who get the memberships for that?
Yeah, the mentoring is really useful. both as a mentor-mentee relationship. So depending on what you're doing, what your interests are, what your next step may be becoming chartered. Part of that process, we'd advocate get a mentor, and it's quite useful that person is often from outside your environment, so you get that advantage as well. So that's one thing. That's a mechanism of membership. And on that, as it's to Andy's point, working with forces who already have schemes in place historically, we're honing how we communicate with staff. One thing is critical when you are a member is, you have the option to tell us more about your interests, your focus, so we could be more focused with what we're telling you, what we're providing with you. So that to get ahead of one of the other questions, that's one thing that's really, really quite important. So yeah, that's all I can say on that really at the moment.
No problem. And this next question is really for Richard and Andy in terms of how does this, you did mention it, Andy, in your introduction, that how does this fit into the existing work and training provided by the College of Policing? How does this all join together?
Yeah, okay. So we are linked with the college. Team and I have been in close contact with them. This is a developing piece of work. So as we move forward, we'll remain in contact with them and build the sort of assets together. So essentially at the moment, things like Knowledge Hub and College Learn, these systems are already present, and we've already discussed how content and resourcing can be added to those. But of course that feeds into the question around future change, white paper, MPS as well, because all of that is an evolving picture. So it sounds a bit of a get out your free card to say like this is all still being arranged, but it is. But what I can reassure everyone is that this is not us going rogue. This is us working together with the college, with the MPCC, with Richard's team, and essentially we are working really in a project style where Richard and the NTB are really guiding us as the customer for policing. So this is something which we're doing with everybody and being as inclusive as we can be, of course, trying to move this forward, but also working in this changing environment. So without getting too word salad, it is happening, it is there, but obviously that will develop, and I'm sure there'll be more comms and things. There's really regular comms going out about this as it evolves, so keep an eye on those. You'll see the links to the college. Mark Osborne and the team over there are really engaged with us as we move forward.
I think just to add to that, sorry, David, it's really vital to do that expanded bit that I said earlier around beyond the sort of IT and DDAT teams, to everywhere else across policing to make sure that works.
And one last question, going back to Andrew from Ruth, I think it was, yes. What does this partnership mean in terms of those doing the funding for those qualifications? Will the qualifications be discounted, etc.? I think she's mentioning the BCS Advanced International Diploma.
There are some discounts to be had. There's some as a member, but you're afforded a range of discounts. But another advantage of this sort of relationship gives you a lot of leverage as well. So we've sort of baked it into the contracts. We refer to it as CPD, and my organisation is very much aligned to the point about as we discover what some of the skills gaps are, we can make recommendations, and we can look at cost savings there as well, which is the forefront of all my discussions with government and police forces. So no, it's there are specific discounts for members, but that's the kind of question I can certainly pick up with each individual force. If there's a specific requirement, I can respond accordingly, keeping in mind that overarching relationship.
That's fantastic, thank you. So I would remind people, if you want to know more about this, if you're in a force, reach out to your business engagement manager. We have already had a police only workshop on this, which was really well attended with the L&D teams, etc. But please do get involved and reach out for more information. We'll be able to help you. And as we talk about in PDS, there's always something going on to try and things. And I mentioned earlier that our webinars next week are going to be back to the spotlighting on the awards, and there is a workshop that's been arranged for the end of March where you can get into some detailed work, a police only workshop, to learn actually more background around the award-winning approach of Essex in terms of a multi-agency digital hub to tackle fraud. There's QR codes on screen there. Please do follow that QR code, head over to the PDS website, the link's in the chat, and you'll be able to register for that. That's a police-only workshop for that, but do register for that. There's always things going on, as we know. So there's the Wednesday webinars, the events page on the PDS website. It's got lists of all the different things. And those of you in Forces who are in the Force Collaboration channel, if you click the new Collaboration Hub button on that team channel, you'll be taken to a new calendar that shows all the events that PDS are aware of, we're involved in, with recommendations to which ones you should definitely attend. And guess what? Wednesday webinars are definitely green, but ones to consider, and perhaps ones where we haven't had any involvement in helping to plan the agenda. But one we are definitely involved in helping with the agenda for is the Emergency Technology Show in September. And we'll be at that, and PDS and the D.CC are part of the steering committee for that event. And I'm just putting a save the date up there for the 20th to the 22nd of October for a really significant engagement event for you. Remember, you can always keep up to date with what's going on. Sign up for the subscribe to the email list, and remember, there's always, you can replay these webinars, and do share these webinars on. If you come to find something out, the whole point is share it on with colleagues, and you can just pass on the links. We put them onto YouTube deliberately so that they're as accessible as possible for everybody. So I really want to thank Andy, Andrew, Richard, and Mike in the background who've been helping to drive today's webinar. I hope you found it useful. Do join us next week when we return with the Spotlight series, and we're going to be focusing on the award-winning approach around innovation for the frontline policing. And you'll learn more about that nomination and that approach in next week's Wednesday webinar. But thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and I hope to see you next Wednesday.